The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Edge Boost. Bank of Better. Sign up today. Edge Boost. Code HOPENY when you sign up for your account. You get a free Refs Terrorist t-shirt. Claim your shirt at sportsgambling.com/refs. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It's currently Thursday night, June 12th, around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm as always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the preview of the quarterfinals in Stuttgart and in Den Bosch. We're going to break down all 8 of those matches taking place on Friday. For that, though, a brief reminder to help support the show by like and subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, the podcast is also available on Spotify and Apple. So you can find the podcast on audio formats only. But if you do listen to it either that way or through video formats on YouTube with a live stream, YouTube afterwards, or even simulcasting on Twitter, don't forget to subscribe to help the show grow on YouTube, and don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store. We have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs. High quality, very affordable. Recommend getting yourself something there. And a reminder that we also have a great app. If you want to find all the SGPN podcasts and content in one easy location, check out the SGPN app to get free picks and podcasts for the Stanley Cup, College Baseball World Series, NBA Finals. Check out the SGPN app, free to download wherever you do get your apps. Moving on, though, first things first, got to recap what happened in the last episode for the lock and dog picks. Overall, a decent episode for us, as we ended up winning the lock, but we did lose the dog. For the lock, nice win with Virtanen team total over 12.5 at -141. Not easy. He did win the first set in a breaker. Couple of chances before he eventually converted, so he was almost on the verge of punting away the first set. Got the job done, and then eventually you saw yourself in a marathon for the second set as well. We were a little bit, I'd say, lucky in a way, because Virtanen was actually coasting to the over on the team total. Then he got injured. It was a classic wrong-footed situation in grass where you ended up seeing Echeverry hit the ball behind him. He tried to change directions, and his leg gave out on him. I couldn't tell if it was his knee or his ankle. Might have been all of the above, but Virtanen clearly got hurt. He was 2 points away from winning the match, and we had to sweat it out. But we ended up surviving. As Virtanen tried to serve, there was like a 5 to 10 minute injury timeout there as the trainer was trying to help him out. He couldn't move. He was completely prone on the baseline getting treatment, so he couldn't really make it to the chair, and we thought he might retire. So we thought we were going to potentially get a really bad beat push here for the lock instead of the win, being 2 points away from winning. But luckily, Virtanen was able to eventually get back to playing. He eventually did end up winning. He could not move at all. He sprinkled in a couple of drop shots to try to win the points quickly. He did. So luckily, Virtanen got the job done in straight sets and then immediately withdrew from the event. So shout out to Virtanen, who was able to gut it out. He was a couple points away, was able to survive, and then immediately quit and could not continue the event. So shout out to him, a gambling friend now of the podcast. Virtanen, who went over the team total and decided, I actually can't move. I am out of here. And he ended up leaving. So nice win there for the lock. For the dog, though, people lost. We had Arnaldi and Struff the first set over 10.5 games at +125. No regrets there. Struff served well. He did not get broken in that first set. Arnaldi had to face a break point or two, got broken. But the game plan was going to be pretty simple for us for this bet. Struff's going to hold. Can we end up expecting Arnaldi to hold because his serving can be a bit weak at times? We dared Struff's limited return game to actually capitalize on the weak serve, and it did for basically 1 or 2 break points, and that eventually was enough to convert. So no regrets there. Landed 6-4, picked up a loss, and we'll move forward there. But still a nice win for the lock. Try to keep rolling for the matches on Friday. Now recapping the matches that ended up happening on Thursday. A decent amount of straightforward matches, actually. First of all, we were shorthanded because you saw Virtanen drop out because of the injury, and you saw Hurkacz drop out because of the back issue that he suffered against Agut in the first round. So overall, nice job by Hurkacz to get by Agut, but still got injured, couldn't continue, and he ended up having to drop out. So based on that, you ended up seeing Humbert beat Evans in straight sets. Saw Pelka beat Jari in straight sets as well. Saw Bergs beat Papiron in a marathon, as that was a 3+ hour marathon, which ended in a final set breaker, which Bergs eventually did win. And you saw Medvedev beat Mannarino in a fun matchup there, as Medvedev was actually down, I think it was 5-2 in the breaker in the first set, but he fought back and he was able to win at 7-6, 6-4. So only one of the 4 matches did not end in straight sets. But either way, point is you saw 2 matches get wiped from the board, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. For Stuttgart, you saw Mickelson as a massive favorite to lose to Engel, the home country guy. Engel's good. Beat Struff on clay a couple weeks ago. He is very young, but he's very good. He's only 17 years old, so this guy can play. I'm not sure how good he's going to be in terms of ranking in the future. I don't know if he's Fonseca upside, but the point is he's a very solid player, and he's only 17, and he was able to beat Mickelson. Mickelson in that match was a massive favorite. He was around minus 800, and he ended up losing, as it's being pointed out by Boston fan. He lost in straight sets. It was not even fluky. He got outplayed for almost the entire match. So nice job by, once again, the young teenager to get the job done in his home country, Germany. Nice job by Engel getting the job done there in straight sets. Saw Perricard lose to Felix in straight sets. It was the case on clay a couple weeks ago. Happened again here on grass, and it felt like Felix is always a step ahead of Perricard, and Perricard never stood a chance. So 6-4, 6-4, nice win there. He saw Zverev beat Mutet in straight sets. Was a breaker involved there in the second set, but as you ended up seeing Zverev win 9-7 in the breaker. But overall, not too much drama. A little bit there into that breaker. You ended up seeing Mutet have a set point at 5-6, and he was actually serving with the set point. Did not convert, though. And eventually Zverev did win 9-7. And then you saw Nakashima beat Tien in a pretty entertaining straight set match, which Nakashima did win 7-6, 6-3. Tien had never played a grass match entering the event, had a fun 2-set battle with Nishioka before he ended up quitting in the first round. And then he had a fun match against Nakashima. But Tien, I thought, looked pretty good. Nakashima, though, is better on grass, and we saw it because the serve was pretty good, as he won 86% of his first serve points and 72% of the second serve points. So you ended up seeing him not face a break point the entire match. Nakashima looked good, and he was able to win in straight sets. But once again, out of the 8 matches we ended up seeing on Thursday, only one of them did not end in straight sets. All of these Stuttgart matches were decided in straight sets, and we'll see if there's a bit more drama coming up on Friday. But overall, once again, a pretty straightforward collection of matches. Nothing too shocking. The match of the day was obviously the Bergs match against Pyron, because that was a 3-hour marathon, which went to a final set breaker. But overall, a pretty fun tournament, I'd say, selection so far that we've ended up seeing of matches, and we'll see if it keeps rolling for this one. Looking at other comments here in the comment section, Shop of Olive and Jari ended up selling Enigma. He asked if I ended up seeing the Monfils video. Of course I did, which I thought was pretty funny. If you didn't know, Monfils was being called out on social media for losing because people gamble, and the first thing they do is they trash talk the actual players because they have no lives. So they end up trying to blame the players for sucking. So they will tweet out either death threats, or mostly Instagram, I think. They will IM people, the athletes, either death threats or cursing them out, talking about how they suck and they need to move on with their lives. And Monfils responded by going, "I know I'm terrible. Why did you bet on me? Like, you should have known that I was terrible too." And I thought it was pretty funny. Monfils, though, does bring up a point. I know that he was being, kind of classic Monfils about it with the overall teasing and the comedy element of it. But there is a serious problem about actual ordinary people just cursing out athletes after they lose a bet, which I think is very, very scummy, and that's very, very common. So I think that's definitely an issue that we do have in society in the betting atmosphere, and that's why betting kind of has a bad rap, because you have a lot of degenerate gamblers who suck at betting, by the way, who end up losing, and they'll immediately curse out the player, talk about how they should die, and how they basically shouldn't have a reason to live, which is very, very, extreme, because you have a lot of bad gamblers who will take out their frustrations on players instead of themselves being bad gamblers. But the point is, Monfils said to himself that he sucks, which I thought made me laugh. But either way, point is, look, I'll put it this way. I like Mickelson in the matchup. I would not have taken Monfils. And yeah, I feel like people who took Monfils might have been suckered in by the reputation, but I thought Mickelson was the better option in that match personally. It made me laugh, though. Thought it was funny, but it does kind of hide an overlying issue, which is a lot of regular people having easy access to athletes courtesy of Instagram, Twitter, and social media, having the ability to just say horrible things to them because they lost a small bet. So keep that in mind. Definitely, I'd say, problematic in the grand scheme of things, but in the short, I'd say, piece of content, it was funny what Monfils did. and we'll see how he looks moving forward as Wimbledon approaches. Anyway, time to move on into the breakdown of the matches for the quarterfinals in Stuttgart and Den Bosch. Before we get into the actual breakdown of those matches, a brief reminder, though, that we are brought to you by our sponsor, which is Edgeboost, because the first our bank for bettors ensuring all your transactions are approved, no use fees and no minimums, cash records as well, present approval. For all deposits on today, Edgeboost.bet. When you do so, use the promo code SGPN, and you can also sign up, and when you do so, you'll get a free Riffs Terrorist t-shirt. Go to sportscamp.com/refs to claim your free shirt. We're also brought to you by Circa, because Circa is still having their Ultimate Fanciful giveaway, because they are giving away the Ultimate Fanciful experience for a 12-person league to draft in Vegas. We took VIPs for their stay. You'll get a limo ride from the airport, a 5K tab at Stadium Swim, and a hotel stay for you and your 11 league mates at Circa Resort. So keep that in mind. Free giveaway. So don't forget to sign up for the contest. You can always get 15% of everything for the Circa properties with the promo code SGP15. Enter the contest, though, for free at sportscamp.com/Circa, sportscamp.com/CIRCA. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Cam podcast. Finish recapping what happened on Thursday. Time to move on into the matches taking place on Friday. Going to start off with Den Bosch. Both events start at the same time, but I'll go with Den Bosch because why not? Starting off with the first match on the card, matchup between Humbert and Borges. Now, Borges had a bye last round because he ended up getting a walkover because Virtanen was injured, so a nice path for him. But for the actual pricing, Humbert's a massive favorite, -230. You have Borges at around +190. For the spread, you have -2.5 for Humbert, +2.5 for Borges. The over-unders at 22.5 games. For the sets, you have Humbert in straight sets at +117. Borges to win ace sets, -150. The over 2.5 sets is +136. Now, for that history, they have faced off twice. Faced off in 2022, and you saw Humbert win in straight sets, and you saw them face off in Montreal on hard court, and that was last year, and you ended up seeing Borges win in 2 breakers as he won in 3 sets. Now, for the event so far, Humbert's played 1 match, beat Evans in straight sets. As for Borges, he ended up beating Bassivaretti. Was minimal, I'd say, grass experience, and he was able to win 7-6, 6-2, then had a walkover in the second round. So Borges has been fine this season. He's not really known for being a great grass player. I think Humbert has a much better grass resume. And if we're comparing first-round opponents, Evans, despite having a pretty down stretch, still went through qualifying, still a solid grass player because of the slicing, the variety. He can be dangerous on grass. Bassivaretti, though, is no grass acumen whatsoever. We'll see if he turns into a decent grass player. Point is, though, I think the pricing might seem a bit steep at first. I kind of agree with it. I think Humbert should be a big favorite over Borges. I don't think Borges has really any grass resume at all. I think Humbert wins. The question is, will Borges win a set in this matchup? I'm going to say no. You could argue there might be a breaker in there, and you might end up having to sweat out a breaker in order to avoid the potential 3-setter. But I'll go with Humbert to win this one. I think he's just better on grass. Thought he looked good against Evans for the most part, and I do think that looking at a guy who has proven in Wimbledon, etc., that he can make deep runs in grass events, I trust him a bit more than the opposition. Give me Humbert. I'll go with the -2.5 games at -136. Think there'll be a break in there. Think he'll end up being able to hold most of the time. Give me Humbert winning maybe a 7-6, 6-3 type of matchup. So I'll go with that as my main choice for this one. But I do think you're looking at an opportunity for Humbert to show that he's still in good form. Yes, he was really bad in the clay slate. However, he's not a great clay player. He's a pretty good grass player. Think he'll show it here in this one on Friday. Give me Humbert minus the 2.5 games as my main thought for that one. Moving on to the next one, look at a matchup between, we're going to go with Diallo and Khachanov. For this one, going to look at the matchup between Khachanov at -165. You have Diallo at +145. For the spread, you have -1.5 for Khachanov, +1.5 for Diallo. The over under the 23.5 games. For the set spread, you have Khachanov in straight sets at around +150. Diallo to win ace sets -190. You have Diallo in straight sets at +313. For the over-under in sets, the over 2.5 sets at around +130. Now, for the head-to-head, faced off a couple of times. It's been close, but Khachanov's won every time. Faced off a couple of years ago. Faced off last year, in Montreal, and Khachanov won 6-4, 6-4. Faced off in Almaty, and that was a 3-setter as well. That was the final, I believe, in the event, and Khachanov won in 3. so he won a title, but the point is it was close. And then they faced off again after that, and it was another competitive matchup in the Aussie Open this year, and Khachanov did win in 4 sets after dropping the second set. So you've seen the last 2 meetings not in straight sets. Diallo's been good in the event so far, ended up having a nice first-round win against Vukic, who's been really bad, still a decent grass player, as he won 7-5, 7-6, and then beat Thompson, fought off a couple match points as he came back and he won 7-5 in the third set. For Khachanov, he had a bye, then ended up beating McDonald in a competitive matchup, which ended in a final set breaker. But Khachanov has been okay this year, really not up to usual standards. And the point is, you're looking at head-to-head history, you're looking at the form of both guys. Diallo was actually decent in the clay season. I know he lost a 5-set marathon to Griekspoor in the French Open, but he made a deep run in a clay match, in a clay event, I mean. His game is actually, I'd say, decently suited for grass with the serving. He's been volleying a bit more. Pretty good hands at the net. And Khachanov, we saw be vulnerable against McDonald. Khachanov, I think, should be better on grass than he actually is, but he's really never been a great grass player by any means, and I do think that there's an upset potentially brewing in this one. I think the pricing is a bit steep. I think Khachanov should be like minus 130, minus 140. 165, though, does feel pretty steep for me. I think Diallo has the game to frustrate Khachanov. He can shorten the points. Khachanov's unforced errors can be an issue as well. I see a path for Diallo to win this, and I think the price is pretty large. I like the over in this one. We've seen each of the last 2 meetings not in straight sets. I can see a marathon unfolding, so I do not mind the over 2.5 sets. But Khachanov has been a pretty streaky guy. He beat McDonald in 3. Not going to read too much into it. I thought that it was a very tough match. Could have gone either way. But the point is, Khachanov was on upset alert there, survived. I'm not going to suddenly feel confident in him taking care of business against a Diallo guy who has been pretty good, despite being young. It seems like he actually has been growing his game a bit more. The volleys have been impressive. The serving is good. I can see a path for Diallo in this one. I'll go with the dog here. I'll go with the over. Give me a close marathon that I think comes down to the wire, but I do think you're looking at a potential upset on the cards for this one. Moving on to the next matchup. Then look at the match between Opelka and Medvedev. For this one, Medvedev's a massive favorite, minus 360. Opelka's plus 280. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Medvedev at plus 116. You have Opelka plus 3.5 at minus 136. For the over-under in games, I see 23.5. The over is plus 114. Under is minus 134. For the straight sets win for Medvedev, you have minus 110. Opelka to win a set is minus 120. The over 2.5 sets is a plus 146. Now, Medvedev looked pretty good against Mannarino. First grass match of the year. He was a couple points away from losing the first set, came back, and he ended up winning the breaker. And then he won 6-4. Mannarino, though, we know is a very good grass player, and we saw that in qualifying as he was kind of coasting into the actual event. But he got the job done. We know Opelka, though, went through qualifying. He was actually a lucky loser as he lost to Lajal and then ended up having to come back after a last-second fill-in, and he's been winning. So point is, we're looking at, for example, Mannarino, who we know can be dangerous on grass. It's an interesting matchup because both guys have basically no pace, and they try to just out-rally each other. So it was a long match, took 2+ hours, but you ended up seeing Mannarino try to go through qualifying, ended up losing in a final set breaker, then beat O'Connell comfortably. He has not been in great form, but still, he's definitely at his best on grass, and Medvedev beat him. So Opelka, on the other hand, also was a lucky loser, as he ended up losing in qualifying to Lajal, beat De Jong in a 3-setter, then beat Jari in straight sets. So really not beating much competition. Head-to-head, though, has been much in favor of Medvedev, as Medvedev is currently 4-1 lifetime, beat him in Toronto in 2021 in straight sets, French Open straight sets, lost in St. Petersburg in 3, beat him in Miami 2019 in 3 breakers, as he won in, once again, 3-setters with all the sets going to breakers, and he beat him in Washington, D.C. in the City Open 2017 as he won in 3 sets. So the point is 3 of the 5 meetings did not in straight sets, but the most recent 2 meetings were. That was also about 4 or 5 years ago. So it's pretty dated, the actual history, but I do think Medvedev should win in straight sets. Opelka needs a breaker if he's going to win. I don't trust the rally game enough. I do think that Medvedev will wear him down. If I had to go for anything, I think I would go for Medvedev minus 1.5 sets at around minus 110. Would I bet it? Not really. But I think that it makes sense why he's this big of a favorite. Opelka's been fine. The competition's been, I'll say, weak, because Jari I'm not a fan of, and De Jong is more of a challenger guy. I think that Opelka is going to struggle to break, and I think Medvedev will find openings. I think that with the length that he has and the overall return success that he can have, I think he can definitely get returns of serve in play, and that's all he needs. So I'll go with Medvedev minus 1.5 sets. I'm not going to bet it, but I do think he'll win in a competitive straight set battle. Maybe 7-6, 7-6, but I think he'll get a break in there, and I think he'll be able to win this in straight sets. Moving on to the matches that we're going to talk about on Friday in, just pulling it up right now. We have one more to talk about. We have Bergs against Lejal. Now, for this one, Bergs is a favorite of minus 136. Lejal's plus 116. Shopping around, you have minus 1.5 games for Bergs at even money. You have plus 1.5 games for Lejal at minus 120. For the over-under in games, I see 22.5 at minus 130 on the over. I see 23.5 over at plus 106. For the set spread, you have Bergs in straight sets at plus 192. You have Lejal to win in straight sets at plus 234. So looking at the path of both players, no head-to-head history between them. So Lejal's been coasting, went through qualifying, and he did not drop a set. Ended up winning all his matches comfortably as he ended up beating Dinoli in straight sets and beat Opelka 7-6, 6-3, then beat Degir in straight sets and had a walkover as Hurkacz dropped out of the event. For Bergs, though, he's had a very tough run, but he's here. Beat Blocks in a final set breaker and ended up beating Papiron in a once again final set breaker. So he's been getting by barely, but it still counts. Now the question is, should Bergs be a favorite of this caliber? I can understand why he's favored, because he has been a more proven commodity on the tour, and Lejal's a very young Estonian guy. Having said that, I've been more impressed by Lejal on the eye test so far in the event, and I will take him to win this matchup. It's very tough, I'd say physically, to come back after winning a 3-hour marathon on grass, where you had to fight off a bunch of breakpoints, try to survive, and you had yourself in the thick of it in both matches. Lejal's been coasting. He's not dropped a set yet. He's been cruising. He basically had a day off on Thursday because he was able to avoid playing Hurkacz. He had a bye, and you ended up seeing his opponent play 3 hours on Thursday and has an immediate turnaround with no days off. So I like the spot for Lejal in general, not to mention the fact that Bergs, despite winning, has faced 34 breakpoints in the event so far. Lejal, by comparison, has faced 4. I think Lejal is the better server, and I think that's going to be enough to win it. But he's a good player. He's got firepower. Bergs, I think, is a pretty good player. But I think the spot's not very good. With a no day off after playing 3+ hours, 34 breakpoints faced. The serve has not been very good for Bergs. He's survived. He's been returning well. But Lejal's been serving bombs. I think that he's a very good price here. Give me Lejal money line as my choice for that one. Moving on to the next matchup. We're going to look at Stuttgart now. For this one, you have Angle against Felix. Angle trying to keep the Cinderella run here as the home country guy, and he is a massive dog as he's around plus 379. For Felix, you have around minus 500. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Felix, plus 3.5 for Angle. The over-under in games at 22.5. For the set spread, you have Felix in straight sets at a minus 165. Angle to win a set is plus 128. For the over 2.5 sets, I see plus 195. Now, Angle has looked good. Don't get me wrong. Was able to beat Mikkelsen in straight sets, and he was able to get by against Duckworth in a final set breaker. He was down a break in the third, ended up coming back and winning. Point is, though, he's a very talented young player, but Felix, we know, is the more talented guy, and he's the more proven guy. He looked good against Perricard in his first match of the event. So the question is, do I trust Felix enough to actually win this comfortably? Comfortably is a stretch, but I think he wins in straight sets. I think you might get a competitive set in there, but that really comes down to the game total because you're looking at what could be a potential breaker. You might end up seeing maybe a 7-5 in there. Do I think Felix wins? Probably, but the lines are pretty sharp. I think 3.5 sounds right for games, and I think that 22.5 sounds right for the actual total. You need a breaker if you want to actually get there and a 6-4. I think I'll go with the under. I'm not going to bet this match, by the way. I see no value in it at all. But I do think Felix in straight sets, in theory, is the best option at minus 165. I will not be betting it. I think Angle looked good against Mikkelsen. I'm not a big Mikkelsen guy. Felix, I think, looked very good in the match against Perricard. And I do think that his return will give Angle problems. I think that the rallies might be a bit long. Felix has the firepower and the variety to really frustrate Angle. He can come to the net. He can switch some things up. Mickelson tries to do that, but I thought Mickelson, his serve just is not as good as it should be. For a guy that is, I'd say, once again, relatively tall, for a player with a weak serve, it's a serious problem for Mickelson, especially on, I'd say, potential upset alert. Because if he's not going to be able to get a lot of free points from the serve, he can be in some trouble. And I think Felix will definitely serve better than Mickelson did. I think he will neutralize the Angle return game. And I think Angle's serve is good. It will be very good in a couple of years. But I think Felix will be able to jump on it. And I think that if he's able to break Perricard a couple of times on grass, he can break Angles a couple of times. Give me the under in this one, but I'll go with Felix in straight sets as my main thought for this one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Fucsovics against Fritz. Fritz is a decent favorite, minus 250. Fucsovics is plus 200. For the spread, you have minus 2.5 for Fritz. You have plus 2.5 for Fucsovics. The over-under in games at 24.5. Head-to-head history, though, has been interesting because you have seen Fucsovics have success against Fritz in the past. Faced off in this event, actually, in the most recent meeting 2 years ago, and Fucsovics won in Stuttgart in straight sets. Faced off in Munich that same year, and you saw Fritz win in 3, Indian Wells 2023, and Fritz won in straight sets. So Fucsovics has given Fritz some problems, but those matchups were dated. All 3 meetings in the head-to-head were in 2023, but one of them was in this exact event. So keep that in mind. For the path, though, Fucsovics has looked very good. Ended up going through qualifying. Couple of 3-setters. Ended up beating Hanfmann in straight sets and beat Rinderknecht in straight sets. Fritz looked good. Ended up beating Hollis in straight sets. Had a breaker there in the second set. So not the easiest. He actually fought off 2 break points in the 1-2 service game. So he could have potentially dropped that second set, but he got the job done. Now, I think Fritz is the better player. He's had a really rough year so far. Fucsovics, when healthy, is dangerous. He almost beat Tommy Paul, had a great opportunity to win in that 4th set. He was serving for the match. He choked it, lost in 5. So even on clay, he looked pretty good. And I think Fucsovics has a game that translates well to the courts here in Stuttgart. We saw him beat Fritz here a couple of years ago. Fritz, we know we don't trust. That's why we didn't take him to win the event. I will take a spin with the dog here. I think Fucsovics is quite live to win this. I think it'll be close. Minus 250 does feel very, very steep for me. I'll go with the over 2.5 sets at plus 136. If you want to go for Fucsovics to win a set at minus 160, bit steep for me. Maybe the team total over instead for him. Don't mind the games at around plus 2.5, plus 3. I see a close matchup, though. I think Fritz's unforced error issues might be present here. Fucsovics, though, can be dangerous. I don't trust him at all. And I see Manzi mentioned that Fritz is playing like a schizo. I'm not going to disagree with you. I think that he's a guy who you just cannot trust day in, day out. And I think that Fucsovics, the only issue for him recently, or really throughout his entire career, is injuries. He's a solid, well-rounded player who can frustrate Fritz. I see a path. Give me the dog here for the value. I'll go with Fucsovics on that one. Moving on to the matchup between Zverev and Nakashima. For this one, Zverev is a decent favorite of about minus 360. Nakashima is plus 280. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Zverev at plus money. You have Nakashima plus 3.5 games, minus 138. For the over-under, I see 23.5 games. For the set spread, Zverev in straight sets is minus 125. Nakashima to win a set is around plus 100 or so. For the over 2.5 sets, I see plus 160. Now, that has been actually competitive. Zverev has won every meeting, but they've been close. U.S. Open, you saw him win in 4. French Open in 2022, he won in straight sets, but there were 2 tie breaks in that one. Nakashima is definitely at his worst on clay. U.S. Open 2020, and Nakashima once again did lose in 4. So you've seen 3 Grand Slam meetings. The only time they've played, there has been a couple of competitive sets, or at least Nakashima winning one in 2 of the 3. So the point is you've seen Nakashima give Zverev some problems in the past. Zverev's been fine, had one match against Mutet, fought off a set point. He did not look great in that second set. Nakashima, though, has been good. Ended up beating Tien in straight sets, beat Fernley in 3. Nakashima, though, and Zverev are both head cases, so you really can't trust either guy. The question is, do you want to trust the head case guy to take care of business in straight sets, or give some leeway to the other head case guy and hope that Nakashima does enough to piece together a decent set and potentially steal it? I think Zverev wins. I do not think it's easy. I actually consider the over at 22.5 games. I can see a breaker. Nakashima is a good server on grass especially, and Zverev, I think, can be susceptible to getting broken. We know that Zverev can mentally check out for 10 minutes, and suddenly he's down a break or two. I think that this will be a close matchup. I'll go Zverev in 3 if I had to go for the prediction. So I'll go with the over 2.5 sets for fun. I like the price there at plus 160. I think the team totals might be the way to go. If you think it goes 3 sets, maybe a team total parlay with both guys. But I see a close matchup that goes a pretty long way, but I think Zverev outlasts him in 3 sets. Give me the over for that one. Moving on to Shelton against Lehecka. For this one, Lehecka is a small favorite, actually, about minus 125. You have Shelton around plus 110 or so. For the spread, you have minus half a game for Lehecka, plus half a game for Shelton. The over-under games at 25.5. For the set spread, you have Lehecka in straight sets at around plus 200. You have Shelton in straight sets at plus 222. For the over 2.5 sets, I see around plus 125. So for the head-to-head history, there is none, so nothing to actually go by. Lehecka, though, has been good. Was able to beat Struff in straight sets and beat Bonzi in straight sets. For Shelton, he had a really tough match against Air Bear. Got the job done, though, in straight sets, 7-6, 7-5. Shelton, I think, can be dangerous. Lehecka, though, is very solid based on his overall ground strokes and his serve. I think is underrated. It's why he's won an ATP title before. It's why he's a good overall player. Now, I think the pricing makes sense. Do I think Lehecka should be a favorite, though? Maybe a bit steep for me. I would have minus 110 apiece. I really don't see much separating these two guys. The argument would be that Shelton looked vulnerable against Herbert, who's a serve and volley guy, which can be difficult to deal with in Stuttgart. He got the job done, though, in that one. I think Lehecka can win this match. I'm not saying that he's going to lose to Shelton. But for the value, I don't see much on Lehecka. I just think the price is too steep. I get that it might not sound expensive at minus 130. I really see a coin flip. I think minus 110 sounds right on both sides. You can make cases for both guys. You might see a breaker or two. Totals 25.5. I don't mind the over 2.5 sets here. Give me a close battle that goes the distance. For the value, though, give me Shelton. I just don't see much separating these two guys. I see a close matchup. I think that both guys can bring good serving, good overall rally skills, and I do think you might see a pretty balanced matchup in this one. So I'll go with the over 2.5 sets, and I'll go with the dog because of the value, but I think minus 130 and change. I know I said 125 is available in some spots. I found around 133 in others. Bit steep for me. Give me Shelton for the value, but I'll go with the over as well for that one. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the preview of the match for Friday. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks for the show. For that, the reminder, they're brought to you by Rick Fantasy because they're going long for the finals in the NBA because they have the extender bonus hop in game 1, and the longer the series goes, the bigger the bonus gets. When you sign up for an account, use the code SGPN. They get a special pick and a first-time visit offer up to 1K in bonus cash on Rick Fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to Rhythm because Rhythm has been around for a long time with us on the podcast as sponsor. They also just launched a game-changing feature called Power Trends, and detect the patterns where Rhythm's models consistently win, and they have a high ROI. They're also updated every day. It suits the Rhythm, no touts, no noise, just clean data-backed picks. Download the Rhythm app, check out the Power Trends, and start betting smarter. Also, try it out for free for a week by using the free trial. Go to sportsgambling.com/rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. We're also brought to you by MyBookie because MyBookie is a place for every sport. They have the Stanley Cup, they have the NBA Finals, they have tennis, they have baseball, you name it, UFC. Also available on locations. Use crypto for all these payouts. Use a positive Santo for an account. Use code SGPN to get a 100 match up to 1K. So once again, use it for a nice deposit match deal up to 1K. Terms and conditions MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the matchups in the quarters for Stuttgart and for Den Bosch. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock and dog, I'm going to go back to Den Bosch for both matches, coincidentally. For the lock, I'm going to go Diallo team total over 12.5 games here at minus 114. Diallo is minus 195 to win a set, so I do think that he's going to win a set in this one. Diallo's been going over his team total in each of the first 2 matches here, whether it involved a 3-setter against Thompson or a straight set win against Vukic. There's been a lot of 7-5 or 7-6 sets because he's a good server, and that could happen again here in this one. There's been a 7-5 or 7-6 set in a 4 straight Diallo matches, and there's also been a 7-5 or 7-6 set in 3 straight Khachanov matches. You might see at least one breaker, and you might end up getting what could be a 3-setter. Couple of scripts there, but Khachanov has also not been winning many matches recently in straight sets. 4 of Khachanov's last 5 matches have not ended in straight sets, including the marathon he had against McDonald in the first match here, where McDonald won over the team total despite losing in that matchup. I see Khachanov potentially winning. I see being a marathon either way. Think he'll get a breaker. Think you might end up getting a 3-setter. But the head-to-head history has been competitive. Khachanov is 3-0, but Diallo has been making some, I'd say, noise in those matchups, as each of the last two did not in straight sets. Give me Diallo to keep this match competitive. Think he has a shot to win the match outright. I do think he can win a set. He's minus 195 to do so, and you expect to see probably a breaker in there as well. So once again, give me the value. Give me Diallo, team total over 12.5 at minus 114 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go to the last match that we talked about in Den Bosch between Bergs and Lejal. Give me Lejal money line at plus 116. Bergs has been winning matches not easily. Beat Papiron and blocks in a final set breaker in the first two rounds. Including qualifying, though, Lejal has been coasting. He has not dropped a set. Ended up beating a couple of, you could argue, weak opponents, but the point is, the fact is, he has not been really challenged at all. And I do like how well his serve is playing on the courts here. You're looking at Lejal, who beat Desir in straight sets, beat Opelka, who's still in this event, beat him in straight sets, so I like how he's playing. But Lejal has not been broken in the entire event. Bergs, though, in his two matches, has faced 34 break points. He's faced at least 16 points, 16 break points in each of the first two matches. So the serve has not been very good for Bergs. Lejal has the better serve here, in my opinion. He's in better form, and you ended up seeing Bergs play 3+ hour marathon, having to play again with no day off, and Lejal didn't play yesterday because Hurkacz didn't show up. I like the overall spot for Lejal. I like the price. Think he should win this one. Give me Lejal money line as my dog for the show. So once again, the picks for the show, the lock's going to be on Diallo, team total over 12.5 games at minus 114. For the dog, I'm going to go with Lejal money line at plus 116. That's going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the semis in Den Bosch and in Stuttgart. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.